Have you ever stopped to think about the incredible journey a new medicine takes? It's one of the most rigorous paths in all of modern science. It starts as just an idea in a lab and ends up, hopefully, in your local pharmacy. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain and trace that exact path.
So, it's a journey that really affects every single one of us. And it's all built to answer two simple but absolutely critical questions. Is this new drug safe? And does it actually work? Let's break down how we find those answers.
Okay, so take a look at this timeline right here. This is our roadmap. And the first thing you'll probably notice is, this thing is a marathon, not a sprint. Seriously, we're talking about a journey that often takes more than a decade, filled with critical checkpoints every step of the way. And the price tag for that marathon? Whoa, it can be absolutely staggering. We're talking upwards of $500 million just to bring one new drug through this whole process. So you can see the stakes, both financially and for public health, are just incredibly high. So where does a story like this even begin? Well, long before any person is involved, long before it's even a pill, a promising new molecule has to prove its worth in the lab. This is what we call the preclinical stage. The goal here is pretty straightforward. Gather enough data to show that this new compound isn't obviously harmful and, that it might actually have a real benefit. Think of it like the very first super strict safety gate. Only the absolute most promising candidates ever get through to even be considered for human trials. All right, so once a drug proves its potential in the lab, it's ready to face its biggest challenge yet. And I'm not kidding when I call it the gauntlet of human clinical trials. This is where we really find out how a drug behaves inside the human body.
But what is a clinical trial, really? Well, you can think of it as a super carefully designed scientific study. Every single step is meticulously planned out to gather data and answer those two big questions we talked about. Is it safe and does it work?
I like to think of these trials as a series of levels in a video game, Each one gets progressively harder and more complex. So, in phase 1 or level 1, the drug is introduced to humans for the very first time. If it passes, boom, it levels up to phase 2 to see if it works in actual patients. Past that, and it's onto the massive boss-level scale of phase 3, before finally reaching what you could call the end game, the long-term monitoring of phase 4. And just look at how the scale and the questions change with each phase. It starts with just a handful of people, like 10 or 15, just to see how the body even processes the drug. Then it expands to small groups of healthy volunteers to figure out a safe dose. Then it moves to patients with the actual condition to see if it even works. It's only after all that it moves to a huge phase 3 trial with hundreds or even thousands of people to confirm everything on a massive scale. And this really highlights just how incredibly rigorous this system is. You can't skip ahead, there are no cheat codes. A drug has to prove itself at each and every phase before moving on. It's like a giant funnel, right? It filters out compounds at every single step, so only the absolute safest and most effective ones have a chance of making it all the way through to the end. Okay, so we're talking about potentially thousands of people participating in these trials. That brings up a huge question. How do we make sure they're protected? Well, that brings us to the really strict ethical rules that govern every single clinical study. And let me be clear, patient safety is, without a doubt, the #1 priority, period. The foundation for all of this protection is a set of international guidelines called Good Clinical Practice, or GCP. The easiest way to think about GCP is as the global ethical and scientific rulebook for every trial. It's what ensures that trials are run properly, that the data is trustworthy, and most importantly, that the rights of the human volunteers are always, always protected. And these principles, they basically build a shield of protection around every single participant. These are completely non-negotiable. The potential benefits have to justify the risks. A person's well-being is always more important than the research itself. And at the very heart of all this is that every participant has to give their willing, fully informed consent. And informed consent is so much more than just signing a piece of paper. It's a process. It's an ongoing dialogue. The research team has to explain everything, the purpose, the procedures, all the potential risks and benefits. And the volunteer? They have the right to ask any question they want and can decide to leave the study at any time, for any reason, with no penalty. It is truly the cornerstone of all ethical research. So who are the people actually making all this happen? A clinical trial is this massive team effort, but there are two key roles right at the center of it all. Okay, so you've got two main players here. First, there's the sponsor. That's the organization, usually a pharmaceutical company or a big institution that's footing the bill and managing the whole thing. And then, right there on the front lines, you have the investigator. That's the doctor at the clinic or hospital who's actually running the trial day to day and is directly responsible for every single participant's health and safety. All right, let's fast forward. Let's say a drug makes it through all those tough phases. It's proven to be safe, it's proven to be effective, and it finally gets approved for sale. The journey is over, right? Well, not quite. In a lot of ways, a brand new, even bigger chapter is just getting started. I mean, getting to the pharmacy shelf is a huge achievement. It represents years and years of work and hundreds of millions of dollars. But think about it. Now, the drug is going to be used by millions of people out in the real world, not just in the controlled environment of a clinical trial. And that's where the final phase kicks in. And this is what we call a phase 4 trial. You might also hear it called post-marketing surveillance. Basically, it's the continuous, long-term monitoring of a drug after it's been approved and is out there being used by you and me. And this phase is absolutely critical. Why? Well, it helps us find those super rare or long-term side effects that you just never see in a trial with only a few thousand people. It gives us data on how the drug works in specific groups, like the elderly or kids, who maybe weren't a huge part of the earlier trials. It lets us compare the drug to other treatments, and sometimes we even discover brand new, beneficial uses for the drug that nobody expected. It's our ultimate long-term safety net. So when you think about it, from that very first test in a lab to years of monitoring after it's on the market, this whole incredibly rigorous journey is designed to build a deep, evidence-based profile of a medicine. It's this exhaustive process that allows us and our doctors to have confidence in the treatments we rely on every single day. It's a system that's really built on caution and evidence, which is a good thing. But it does leave us with some really important questions to think about. In a world with urgent medical needs, is a process that can take a decade or more fast enough? And, as we've seen with phase 4, the story never really ends. So how do we get even better at tracking those unexpected effects that might only pop up years down the line? Definitely some food for thought.